And I think we're live. Hey, this is Bill Gross, the LAProbate expert. And this is our Tuesday real estate investing Zoom, realestateinvestingzoom.com if you want to register for it, where every Tuesday we get together and talk about all things real estate investment. We talk about first-time investing. We talk about buying multiple unit properties, out-of-state properties, all kinds of different ways to make money in real estate. And I think that one of the things that I've always talked to people about is the importance of having multiple ways to generate income. You know what? The video's not there anymore. Hold on a second. Let's try this. Let me just try kick this one more time. Stop live stream. Oh, I guess it is on. Okay, well, I don't know really what's going on here. I'm having some technical issue where I wasn't able to get into the technology. No upcoming events. There we are. Okay, well, I guess we are live streamed. Huh? Okay, violating every rule here of the technology, you're supposed to act like everything's perfect and done, but not quite how we have it. Anyhow, so I launched this really pre-COVID when we stopped having live meetings. I used to go to a weekly real estate investment meeting in Van Nuys on Wednesdays at noon at the Sizzler, and it was so good that I went, even though I couldn't eat the food because I keep kosher, and I have to pay about $15 to get the salad bar. And it was in Van Nuys, which I never really went to the Valley other than this meeting, but there'd be 40, 50 people. One thing I know is the more people you talk to in real estate, the more money you make. The bigger your more people you service, the more money you're going to make, the more value you're going to create for your business in the long run. And so I started this call when COVID stopped those meetings, and we built it up to where we have this every week, and we get anywhere from 25 to 30 to 40 people on the call, and then we put it on social media and get more views there and such. And it's been great. Now today I'll just say I'm wearing the headset. You can hear some noise in the background because it sounds like I'm filming at a construction site. I am apparently in my bathroom next door. We're changing the tile. And I'll just tell you a quick little story on that. When COVID hit, my wife thought, what a great time to upgrade the tile in our kitchen and bathrooms. So my office used to be in the back of the house, and then right next to it was the driveway where they cut the tile. So this time, and then I guess the tile guys didn't install it correctly. My wife said, we're going to have the tile people redo it. I thought, great. I'm no longer in the back of the house. I have a bedroom now. Of course, the first room they work on is the bathroom next door to me. And I guess the first step in the tile is to take a jackhammer and remove the tile. So I'm in a construction site today. I'm sorry for any background noise, but hey, we roll the punches, we adapt, we overcome, we improvise, and do our job. So here we are. So anyhow, in the course of talking about real estate, I talked to a really good friend of mine who had been in real estate along with me as a career for a long time. And he was looking to find some ways to deploy some capital and make some income and invest in real estate. And I said, one of the benefits of getting involved with real estate is not just the money you make, but your opportunity to be of service and share with other people. And so I'm really fortunate to be able to invite on this call, one of my closest friends, as well as a colleague, as well as a fellow student in the path of life. Our wives are our best friends. We live about a block and a half apart from each other. So I want to welcome Avraham Gordon to our call today as a guest. Hey, Avraham, how you doing? You're muted, talking about technology. Can't hear you. You're muted. No, you have to unmute yourself. So, and again, this is just part of the COVID is.
There we go.
There you go. Avram, welcome to our call. Thank you so much.
Nice to be here.
The title of this episode is going to be Even Ordinary People Can Get Extraordinary Results. And so he proves that from the beginning. He's no technical wizard. Avraham, my good friend. So first off, let's just, before we get into what you did, and I think his story is something that anybody here on the call could probably replicate or relate to or share with somebody else to help them in their path. Let's go back. How did you get involved in real estate initially?
Well, going back a long time ago, I needed a job. And I got hired by American Savings as a management trainee loan officer. Way back when. Most of my career has been in lending. Mm-hmm. All of it has been in lending.
Okay. So then, well, not all of it, because then you were doing a furniture business for a while?
Well, as far as real estate.
Okay. Well, furniture is in real estate. And then, so what prompted you to start investing in real estate? What was the impetus, the idea to do that?
So I got over the fear of what am I going to do when I retire, or am I going to have to take up smoking or what? But then my wife went into that zone and she started to worry and look at ways to augment our income, and she read one of these articles about how much money one can make in real estate. It was an article about wholesaling.
Interesting.
So we really actually, she said, I'd like to buy this course. And it was Bigger Pockets, by the way. What do you think? We spend the money, can I buy it? And I said, $200-300, whatever it was. I said, yeah, sure. I had my doubts about what she wanted to do. These get rich quick schemes are just that. I said, go ahead. And she actually started there. I was led to the conclusion, which I may have been wrong at that time, that wholesaling might not fly very well in California without a license, which we didn't have. I may be wrong about that, but in fact, I still think it's probably dubious. I think the state's going to make it tougher to do that. But we started to realize that might not work. And then we had a little bit of money, so we looked for ways we could actually invest ourselves. California was out of the question with the money we had. So we started looking around. And we discovered Kansas City, not the best market, not the cheapest market, not the closest, not the furthest, but it had a little bit of everything that looked like maybe we could get started there.
So just for the record, wholesaling in and of itself, there's nothing wrong with it. If you're buying a property as a principal, you have the right to assign the property as long as you're being honest about it.
Right.
If you're an agent, it does create some potential conflicts, so you have to be careful about that. But I think that what you're alluding to is correct, is that so many wholesalers aren't being honest with what their intention of the property is and are not following the rules. But I know plenty of I've wholesaled property this year that I made money on legally and ethically. It's a little hard to play by the rules, but in the long run, that's the safe way. So, but that said, so you went to Kansas City, Kansas.
Right.
And so you started looking at property. So what were your first steps? Like you land at the airport, you're from California. What time of year did you show up there?
Oh gosh, I'm trying to actually remember now.
During COVID?
Summertime.
During COVID?
Before COVID.
Before
By the way,
COVID, okay.
we started, my wife and I, we are both analysts. We both have a math background. I'm good at math and I understand it. I got A's in physics, but I should tell you, my wife is a rocket scientist, or she was. She wrote programs to target nuclear missiles for a living.
Right.
So for her, numbers were everything. And
so you researched the market. That was
we
kind of
researched it. We bought a lot of data. We Zillow and then stuff we had to pay for, and that's how we found Kansas City. So go ahead.
So some June, you fly into Kansas City, Kansas, or you drive to Kansas City, Kansas?
Well, the first thing I did was get on the internet and started looking for wholesalers.
Okay.
Because that looked like the pile of people that would have maybe the kinds of property you wanted to buy.
Okay.
I spent a lot of time. I hooked up with one fella. It's kind of funny the way it worked out. This was my first deal. This was his first deal. He had just joined this group of company that had been successful in another state, and they hired him to help him in Kansas City.
Okay.
He didn't know what he was doing. I didn't know what I was doing. He drove me around. We looked at a few properties. We looked at one. It was $20,000, 700 square feet on over a half an acre. And he says, my people tell me that this property will be worth X when it's developed, and it should cost Y, and you should make Z amount of money.
Okay.
I wasn't born yesterday, but it's a place to start, right, analyzing numbers. Okay. So at the end of the day, we looked at a few properties, and I wrote him a check.
And that's the first property you bought?
That was the first property.
So how many properties did you look at before you bought the first one? With all the research and data you done beforehand, how many actual properties did you look at?
I talked to a lot of people, but I went out with him that day. I got that, we started, others showed me things, and, that's about it. Some were more helpful than others. Mm-hmm. But his company they put it all out there, what they thought the deal was like. And he got in the truck with me, drove me around. If I had a question, he called his boss.
In a truck. Hold on now. Now you hit the whole.
Now we're talking, yeah. It didn't have a
beer with some country western music there in the background.
And at the end of the day, I said, all right, I have no idea once I buy it, I don't know, I have any idea what to do with it.
Right.
So he says, well, there's a couple contractors I know. I'll call one of them, and if you want, he'll come over and take a look for us.
Okay.
So gullible me, I said, sure. So this fella, older guy like me with a nice Southern accent, real, good old boy type of guy, came. He took a look at it, and I said, okay, all right. I looked at Zillow, and why not? So I wrote him a check for a couple $1,000 the earnest money, and we closed on it in a couple of weeks.
So was that the property on 58th Street?
That's property on 58th Street. That's the one on the write-up I showed you.
Okay, so we're going to share that property right now so you guys can see, because my goal here today was really to walk you through what's a real deal look like. So we're going to look at a real deal. So, oops, there's a new photo. Okay, old photos. So this is what you bought. This was your dream house. This was the property that was going to lead to your financial independence. This thing here.
Yeah.
It looks like the after picture from Dorothy and the Wizard of Oz. This is.
It was not that old. It built in 1954, but the weather's a lot tougher out there than it is in California.
Right. And then inside, of course, was a masterpiece.
Yeah, there's the kitchen.
Fine custom cabinetry and fine linoleum, the best linoleum that
could be
installed back in 1950. And then this is what it looks like afterwards.
I think, yeah.
Same property. So before.
Everything that you touch and most of what you don't touch in that property was replaced.
So, and again, for you guys, I hope you appreciate this. I know I do, that he went to the trouble of actually giving us the numbers so we can walk through and see what this looks like. So this is a spreadsheet that he created for the rehab project. So your purchase price, you anticipated buying for $20,000, which you did. Yeah. So you buy this for $20,000.
Right.
Now people say, well, what do you get for $20,000? This is what you get.
640 square feet. I will tell you a story about the contractor. I'm talking to this fella, and I don't know how I worked on construction job, but I had no, I didn't know what I was doing. I'm asking him a lot of questions. And finally he says to me, he says, something, let me tell you something, buddy. He said, I work on my own. I do this. I don't want anybody telling me what to do. So I said to him, that's fine. I don't want to have to tell you what to do. That's why we're talking now.
Exactly.
If we could make sense out of this today, you and I, then that's great. And if we can't, it's been nice talking to you.
And for those of you who appreciate fine real estate photography, these are not Sean Barrett photos before or after. They're not quite that level. So I know Sean's a little concerned that I might disparage his professional standards, that he would never allow this to happen in one of my listings. So
yeah, right.
No. So these are the photos. So let's go to the numbers. So you buy it for $20,000.
Right.
Your closing costs on the purchase side, you budgeted $400, was $562. Your rehab costs and holding costs were $35,000. You thought, and it ended up being $40,659. So your all-in cost is $61,221.
Right.
So do you remember how long was it from closing till closing? How long did you actually have the property and the money outstanding?
Actually, I had it a long time.
And I asked this question knowing this as his friend, because as long as he had it, I heard about it.
Oh, yeah, it got to be. So this fellow, he's a good guy. He's a flipper himself, but every once in a while he'll do stuff for other people. Mm-hmm. And I think I'm he decided after me, he's not doing it anymore.
Okay.
But he's in his 60s, and because my wife spent enough time with him while we were there, I think this is the real story. He got some sort of illness in his head. He was getting dizzy. And he really couldn't work a lot. But on the other hand, he's one of these guys that likes to do everything himself. And it just took a long time. At one point, I said to him, Sam, I got to get somebody else. Just taking too long. He says, fine, bring him over. Listen, I'm here to serve, just like you, Bill. He said, I'll show the guy around, but to bring a contractor in on somebody else's job is never efficient. No,
it's never good.
In the next property, I had to face that loss anyway, because the first guy wasn't going to deliver. But in this case, the guy, the numbers I was getting for him to do for somebody else to do the rest of the job, I just ended up going back and sticking with him. And I said, look, Sam, I said, I'll pay you, let's get it done. He said, I quoted your price. I'm going to stick to the price. I said, Sam, it's a Christmas present. You hire a guy and I'll pay him. You don't need to be dragging stuff out of the basement when you're dizzy and falling over. So I had to force him to pay him another $5,000 to hire somebody else to work on the job. So there were not price hikes, or other than the fact that we probably never would have got it done unless we hadn't. That's why the price went up from 35 to 40. And everything else worked out the way you see it.
So how long was it from the day you closed escrow as a purchase until the day you sold and got your money back? How long was that time period?
So the process took 9 months. It took 3 to close because its business is starting to pick up after, when COVID was getting started. Things were slowing down. Nobody's getting anything done. The buyer offered me a good price, but they were an FHA. And as every day, FHA was changing its standards. And it just took a long time to close the deal.
Okay. So from beginning to end, how long was it? From the day you bought the property?
Altogether, it was close to a year.
A year. So you're out, your total investment was $61,000. Of course, you wrote checks along the way. You didn't write a check initially for 61, but if I imagine that you did. And so a year goes by, you sell it for 82. You have some closing costs. Now I notice your costs are less than you planned on. You planned on 6,000, it was only 59.61. How'd you get away with some lower costs?
So I put in a regular 6% commission to sell the property. And although I didn't have my license yet, the market was starting to heat up. And I know what I'm doing. I know how to close a deal. I don't need a realtor to really step in for me. So I listed on Zillow as a FSBO.
There you go.
And then I said I was open to realtors. I'll pay them their commission. So that's why the sales commission went from 6 to 3.
Basically, you list it yourself, but you use Zillow to do it in a hot market.
Yeah.
Good for you. And so your net profit was $17,000 in a year. You put up 61 over time, and you end up with a 21% profit a year later. Now, here's one question I would ask. This house sold for $82,000. What do you think it was sold for completed a year before?
So when it's funny, the guys were telling me 71.
So you could have bought it for 71 and sold for 82, but you bought it for 61 and went through the extra work and time and effort, and you made a little bit more money. But I think the thing that all investors have to notice when we look back is a good chunk of our profit was because the rising tide rose all ships. Right?
Yeah.
Okay. But still, you made $17,000 in a year. But you put a lot of time into it. I know you went to Kansas on this project numerous times, and it was a source of frustration, but also learning for you during the time period.
Right. I didn't factor in that overhead of being out of state. That has nothing to do with the deal.
Right. Now, as your friend, I can say, though, it also was partially a fun way to do business for you and your wife.
Yeah.
It was a business trip, but you also stayed there and met some friends and enjoyed your time in Kansas.
Yeah, it was enjoyable to see, how other people live. It's Midwest things a little slower. People a little bit more straight with you when they deal with you. Yeah, different group of people.
And for a couple who spends their vacations in the mountains fishing and drinking beer, there's more of those people in Kansas, I would say, here in West LA, right? So my point of that is just a funny way of saying that one of the privileges of real estate investment out of your area is it gives you a chance to write off some business, some travel, as well as to enjoy the process. If you can enjoy the process and make money, that's like a home run.
I think I'll point out one thing, though. You had a couple other folks on. One of them was actually coaching people to do this job. And if you'll notice, if you look at my number of rehab and holding and total development costs, 70% of the 100%. And in most of the country, if your costs of acquiring the property and rehabbing the property should not exceed more than 70% of what you could possibly sell it for. That other 30% is going to go to buying costs, selling costs, and your profit. And that worked right just fit into this perfectly. There's a fellow you had on a couple of weeks ago that said when he buys a property, he won't pay more for the property than the property itself as 65% of the final value. So what's happening in California, the land is worth so much money that it's a percentage. You're not going to put all that much into repairing it. If you're in another state where the land is a smaller percentage of the value of the house, and in this case, you're dealing with houses that need to be totally ripped out, it was flipped. I spent a lot more rehabbing the property than I did buying it, which would be just the opposite probably than here in Los Angeles.
Now, one of the things I notice when I look at numbers like this is the numbers, investors will always tell me the following. They paid a little more than they should have or planned to. I don't know if that's the case here. It looks like you're in your budget, but in general, I hear that a lot because it's been competitive. So by property, they've been pushed up a little bit. The costs a little bit more than they expect it to be. That's the case here.
Yeah.
And they sold it for a little less than they would have liked to. Now, in this case, you sold it for more than you budgeted, but you sold it for about 10% more in a market that probably went up 15 or 20% during that year, right? And so the thing that I want to point out to people is, and you've expressed this to me, is these margins are tight. I mean, this is nerve-wracking. Even though you might say you made nice money on it, and you did, 20% annual return, and again, you enjoyed it, you learned first time through. Those numbers are pretty tight. That if the market had gone up by less, by 10%.
That's right.
Your margin goes down, and if you had one major problem, it could have been worse. So, but congratulations on a nice profit on your first time around.
Yeah, thank you.
Now the second tab is uncompleted. Do you want to go through this one as well?
If I'm willing to, I showed both of them just for example. If you want to talk about both, sure.
Yeah. So this is a different property, but also in Kansas City, Missouri. So where are we here? Let's pull up 2714 Benton Avenue. Off mark. So is this your property?
That's it.
Huh?
Yeah, that is it.
Man,
Much
styling. Bigger. Now, is it just me? Anybody here in the chat room want to say, does this look like the kind of movie you see like in a horror movie where there's people getting their heads cut off and chained up? And
Amityville Horror.
Yeah. Is that just me or is that how it looks? With a car, of course, with a car in front. It wouldn't be a rehab house without a car in front. Okay. So this one, you bought for $34,000. Now, did you close on that? You closed on this one already?
Yeah.
Vacant for 15 years. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Well, I forgot to write down. This house was built in 1915.
There you go. There you go. So you bought it and you're into it for, and then your rehab and closing was $92,000. So you had a downstairs bath. You opened the kitchen to the dining area, which is common. Convert the breakfast room to a laundry room. You rearrange upstairs floor plan. So there's drawings, there's engineers, there's permits. Replace the roof, plumbing, fixtures, electricity, gas, cabinets. What didn't you replace? What's left? Is there a nail left from the original building?
The walls.
And bring in water and gas and electricity from the street. Clean up backyard growth and replace half of exterior siding. Okay, so that house is a, how much more? Now you spent $19,000. How much more does it cost to build from scratch a 2-story, 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 1,400 square foot house? I wonder.
So what brings both of those properties into the, well, actually this one more than the other, into the market in Kansas City, I'm sure this is true in California also, the cost of developing new property is so high that I'm told that, and the number's probably higher now, but a year ago, people were telling me, you cannot afford to build a house that's going to sell for under $300,000.
Wow.
Now, and that's in an area where the average house is 250. So you can't bring in more low-cost housing. The only way to provide low-cost housing is to rehab a lot of bad areas and really beat up houses. That's less expensive than to start from scratch.
So I know that Overland Park is a really nice suburb.
It
Right?
is.
A lot of the Kansas City Chiefs players and coaches live there. I just know from past stories. And
That's
I
where we
know,
stay. We go into town.
okay, it's like the nicer area. It's the bougie area. Lawrence is where University of Kansas is. That's a college town.
Yes.
So what's this area like?
That's where the property is.
No, but what's it like? How you describe that neighborhood?
So if you're familiar, it's not that different than Los Angeles. If you imagine the Harbor Freeway, the 110 freeway
Uh-huh.
going south from downtown,
Uh-huh.
and there's a swatch. There's a lot of this city that's old, but there's a swatch straight down that freeway,
Right.
except that at the bottom of it, down around, can you see my arrow?
Yep.
Probably not.
Yeah. Oh,
So
your arrow, no, I can't see you.
no, it's further down probably. Where my arrow is, further south, a very large medical office facility came in that employs a whole lot of people. So you've got downtown on the north, and you got this medical center on the south. That's a very large employment center. So the area in between is developing, although there's some old stuff like this, really old stuff, people that didn't have deemed it not important to live in that house for 15 years. There's houses in that area now that are being developed like this one and sold because it's again, between those two spots, it's an area that's been going up in value.
Okay. So we buy it at 34,000 and we spend $92,000 on it, and we're going to be into it for 126. We anticipate to sell for 170, which would end up with a nice profit of 34,000. Again, a little tight on the margin at 20%. So where are we in the process?
Right now,
That's not a trick question.
we're in the middle of getting this stuff done. I hired a guy, and he just didn't. That I met with, he came recommended, but he just didn't work out, and I had to stop, and everything stopped, and I found someone else, and now we're going again. We've got all the framing in the house. Most of the framing has been redone, and he's starting to. We had to bring in from the street. We had to bring in water. We had to bring in the gas. We had to bring in the electricity. And every time those guys came out, they needed something else. For some reason, the gas company couldn't seem to get it right. I think they came out 5 times.
That's nice.
The last time they came out, they finally put the gas in, but the guy didn't have enough pipe to do a good job. So the gas pipe goes around the corner from the front of the house to the side of the house. It's not attached anywhere along the way. And my contractor is holding the pipe up with a bucket.
It doesn't sound like that meets city standards.
It doesn't. That pipe it goes along the driveway. It's 4 inches away from the wall of the house. If a truck drives, a car drives through there and he's not, people bump their cars into the side of houses before our driveways.
Sure,
If he has
sure.
a gas pipe,
Yep.
he'll rip it out.
Yep.
So we called the gas company, and they're on their way back this week to fix that.
So when do you anticipate closing? When do you think you'll be finished?
This contractor says he's going to get it done the end of February, but I'm going to, in my own mind, mid-March to late March.
Okay.
But this guy's working. I show up, and it looks different in there every day.
Okay. And so if that still happens, the 170 number still looks good to you, and so we're hoping a profit about $34,000.
Yeah, right.
Okay. And so you're able to do these one at a time. This is a part-time thing for you, and it's an elevation from a hobby, but it's not really a full-time business yet.
So when I was first getting into it, we were working in the numbers and this and that, I was factoring in hard money because I could put in a small amount of money and they'd finance the rest. So my first job took me 9 months to complete, 3 months to sell. This job is going to take me about a year. And if we had financed it with hard money at the cost of hard money, that would have eaten up all our profit.
Right.
So I'm in that area now that in order to move faster, I need to find contractors I can rely on. Then if I have contractors I can rely upon, then I can borrow hard money.
Right.
So
Okay.
that's why it's slowing me down.
Got it. Okay. We're going to go into the next piece. If you guys have any questions, feel free in the chat box or raise your hand and I'll jump in anytime. Unfortunately, if you're watching live, I don't have the ability to catch the comments there, but I'll get to them afterwards. Cheryl Williams says, I've been watching Ozark in Missouri. Oh my, OMG. Yeah, I've watched Ozark. And yeah, there's something to that. Okay. So all that said, your game plan at the end of this is to sell that property.
The overall game plan is to sell it.
Okay.
However, I may keep it when you refinance. There's this BRRRR system of they call it, and at the end you refi, get your money out, and keep going. First one we sold, but when it really came down to it, I'm not sure that you get that much more out of selling it than you do refinancing it, and you have the house.
So you put together a calculator. Is that for this property or another property? What is that for?
It's for any property.
Okay. So let's take a look at that number and see how that works out. So this is the property that you're looking at where you would have 2 units totaling 1,750 rents. And they're about 1,500 square foot, so 3,000 square foot property total. Currently leased, these are leased up already. Right?
Right.
And so you buy, I'm sorry.
Well, what's important, I think, when you're buying a rental property, especially if under market, you want to know when your tenants are getting out.
Right.
So I put these notes on the bottom here, when they moved in, if I can find out from a listing, and when the lease expires. So if I don't like the rents, I know how long I have to live with them. Right,
because theoretically rates almost always go up, and so the sooner they're out, the easier it is to raise the rents. You don't want to have to raise rents in people who are there all the time. But okay, so let me just fix this real quick. Okay, so then your operating budget, you're going to bring in 1,750, and then you have expenses for maintenance, taxes, insurance, management fee. You have a property manager locally, vacancy factor at 5%, capex. So you can put aside 5% every month theoretically for any major improvements like a furnace or whatever. So your total expenses monthly are 836. So your net income monthly after all that is 914. Then you have a mortgage payment. If you borrowed 75%, you're going to end up principal interest paying 632. And so your cash on cash is about $280 a month.
Right.
And at that, you're still paying down your principal by an additional 141. So you're profiting about $420 a month. Plus, theoretically, the property goes up in value. And so you end up with a total return. Now, you're not even counting appreciation. You're just counting the cash on cash and principal, and you get 12% annually.
Yeah, you're probably familiar. Bigger Pockets has a calculator.
Yes.
It does the same thing this does, that I would recommend anybody start working with that for a while to get a comfort level and understand what goes into a deal. But once you start doing it, you don't have to reinvent all that stuff.
Right.
If property is going to appreciate, if it appreciates, great. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But you kind of have those things in your head. That's not really going to change the deal. So I just simplified their model just to get it down to the brass tacks. I have here the cash on cash return, the return against the money you're actually putting out, and then plus the percentage of return based on principal pay down and the total.
Now, this is not a property that you've bought. This is one you looked at.
Correct.
But you could apply the same principle to this property at the end, right? At the end, here you could sell it for 170 theoretically, or you can run it through this analysis. So the property that you're building, though, this is not a 2-unit. This is a 3-bedroom house, 2-story. Do you know what that would rent for?
I have an idea what it would rent for. Probably about $1,200 a month. So maybe it's almost 1,500 square feet, and rents are going up. They might rise up to 1,500, but I think now probably about 1,200 a month.
But not quite 1,750. So you can see the number here isn't going to work as well for a BRRRR property. This is more of a resale property.
Right.
Okay.
Makes sense?
Any other pearls of wisdom that you would share? Well, let me
By
ask
the
you this
way,
question.
I
Go
might
ahead.
point out that this house it was listed at 147.
Uh-huh.
I've lost out over and over and over on deals. We raised the bid to 157, $10,000 over the asking price. It sold for 175 all cash.
Okay, there you go. You can see why. Because
Yeah.
127 is a really good deal for an investor.
Well, if you put one for 75 in, you'll see the cash on cash return is awfully small.
Well, let's do that. So, okay, hold on. Does this change the? No. Okay.
Now,
So
do those other numbers, hopefully they all changed appropriately.
I don't think so. So right off the bat, we can see that our payment goes up, our return goes down. Right. So it just gets tighter and tighter. It just starts squeezing tighter and tighter.
Of course,
and tighter.
yeah.
Okay. So lessons learned. What's one of the? Melissa has her hand up. We talked about property management, so Melissa had to jump in. I'm just kidding. Hey, Melissa, what's going on?
Hey guys, yeah. No, my question actually was what does it look like in terms of like is it more landlord friendly over there or tenant friendly over there? Is there still a moratorium happening in that particular state? Is it easy to get people in and out? Just kind of trying to figure out what that market looks like.
Well, it is still it's nothing like California.
Yeah, California's wild.
However, it's in little fits and starts. It's getting there. They've had some real onerous things on the books. They've been taken off. It's back and forth. The moratorium has been lifted. I had a tenant in a duplex that you haven't seen here that first took advantage of the moratorium. They were going to actually cooperate with us and fill out the forms and this and that, but she didn't. She just didn't pay the rent. But the courts, you couldn't evict people in that time period. The moratorium has been lifted, and it took about $1,000 in fees to get her evicted.
It's not too terrible considering some of the wild stuff I've heard out in Los Angeles and California.
By comparison. However, she also did about $10,000 worth of damage while she's there.
Ooh.
And I'm not sure if the courts are that favorable to be able to collect it. One, you have to get it on the docket. Second, you have to be able to find these people. So I don't know that that's going to change, but I think just getting them out, it was a lot easier than it would have been in California.
Okay. Yeah, I've been meeting a lot of different people that want to invest out of state, and I'm considering it. I would love to stay in California because, like you had mentioned, it is an extra expense to go out and purchase property out of state too.
Yeah.
Flying back and forth, getting the team together too. So I'm just trying to figure out,
Right.
this year is going to be my year to invest, hopefully.
Part of why I started this call was personally I want to invest. I'd like to, for full disclosure, I'd like to move to Florida at some point. I lived in Florida. I met my wife in Florida. I'd like to move back. Not this week. We have a grandson and we're settled here, but so I want to start investing there. And if I move my business there, it would help to have some properties. So I've invested in Florida and in Texas. And part of my reason for doing this call was to have people come in and share opportunities and projects and properties and deals and meet people who can help us do that. So my goal, if you have a property that you want to sell, or you have a property in process, or you have a property for sale, bring it to me because I think people on this call are really interested to participate. And here's Melissa saying she'd like to invest property outside of California too, and just another one. Thanks, Melissa. So Avraham, lessons learned. What would be the biggest mistake you made now that you know that you would not make again?
I'm thinking. I'm really having to think of what to do because of the difficulties we run into. Some is just a learning, building up a group of people that you can trust and rely on. I think overall I would be more careful with contractors and arranging, the work that's going to be done, and watching things more carefully.
Learning how to trust the people or not trust them and find a good team.
Right.
Yeah, I think it's critical. Again, why we do this call is we're hoping to find investors and wholesalers and contractors in other states that we can partner up with and meet and shortcut that process.
Yeah, I think another one would be not to bite off more than you can chew. You were talking about multiple lines, and I opened up a lot of things at once,
Mm-hmm.
which it costs you money to expand your business, but without having the attention to give all those things, I probably spent more money building this up than I needed to. I could have probably done the same thing more efficiently.
And so what would be one piece of advice or suggestion you got that was really turned out to be really valuable for you through this process, besides my help? Just kidding.
Which has been very helpful, by the way. You give another perspective on it.
Just kidding. But what's one piece of advice that you would give to somebody to point them in a direction, help them stay on the path?
Well, I'd say if you're going to go, especially if you're going to go out of state, you have to get into a deal large enough to pay the overhead costs of doing so.
Right. That's a good point. So overhead costs being the travel, flights, time, hotel, food. When you travel, it's more expensive to stay home. Data.
Which you have to know what you're doing. Like you've told me, you've invested in taking a lot of classes and learning what to do. And that is a cost of doing business.
Right. I do think it helps to invest in an area that you like to travel to. It may not.
Definitely.
You don't want to make bad investments just because you want to travel someplace, but it certainly makes the travel pleasant while you're doing the work.
Mm-hmm. It sure does. Yeah.
Well, good. Okay. Any questions for Avraham? Here's a real life. He's my friend, so I tease him all the time. I should tease him not too, but if Avraham can do it, anybody can do it.
Well, that's actually true. That's actually true.
He says that to me all the time. We are very close friends, so I can say this about him. He says that all the time, and I look. He's a very smart guy, but I don't think he had any particular connections in Kansas or any particular inside the market other than what he learned along the way. And so I do think there's some truth to that anybody could do it in that regard.
Yeah, you can.
That's what we have here is you can too. So who's got a question? Who's thinking of looking to invest? Needs a little courage, needs a little encouragement, needs some information.
By the way, you can give that model to people if you don't have something like that to work out deals quickly, go ahead and use it.
Thank you. Okay, good. So if anybody's interested in his model, go ahead and just email me and either ask for the project or ask for the rental analysis, and I'll send you the appropriate link, whichever one you ask for. Good. Any questions? And of course, no. Aaron says, "Don't forget good lenders." Yeah, definitely. How did you find a lender to support your financing in Canada?
So there's a group in Kansas City that's related to a national group called REI, Real Estate Investors something. And then when you get to the local, you get some set of letters at the beginning to localize it. The Kansas City is MREI. They're a networking group. And, I arranged the first couple of trips to when they had meetings, when COVID was there and they were doing things on Zoom. I joined them on Zoom. So I met a lot of people and asked a lot of questions. Like you say, when you know people, and one person led me to another, and at least I had some people to deal with instead of a complete shot in the dark.
So I see we have on son of a good friend of ours, our good friend Sam Glazer's son, Jesse, is an insurance agent here locally in Culver City. And I asked him to jump. I called him the other day because I saw his business card, and I said, Jesse, does your company have home insurance for investors for vacant homes? And he popped in and said, what? Jesse, what did you say when I asked you that?
Yeah, we handle that all the time.
Yeah. So go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. Oh, no, go ahead.
I was just going to say, so tell me, now do you also write, is your policies written specifically exclusively in California? Are you able to write in other states?
So we have like states like Texas, Florida, New York, but mainly California is where we do personal line, commercial, business.
Okay. But if somebody needs another state, you'll help them at least make a couple phone calls or give them a little assistance, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
And
for sure.
so I think it's always good. One of the things I've learned in this business is the hungry dog hunts best. And I know Jesse, I've known him, I think, since he was born, I think. But I know his father real well. And I know he's building his insurance practice, and I just wanted to bring him in. Jesse, make sure you put in the chat box if you have some information. Do you have any particular product you want to share with us about investors' appropriate insurance?
I just was going to talk about quickly, like that for vacant homes, you can't just have a normal homeowner's policy because it's a much greater risk for insurance companies. If it's unoccupied for more than 30 days, it's a lot more likely to get broken into, vandalized. If there's a leak or fire damage, it's more likely to lead to more damage because you're not going to notice it for longer.
Right.
So
Right.
having an agent who knows the kind of carriers that will take on that risk will get you a good price. And then once you no longer need the coverage for like an unoccupied or vacant property, you can get a prorated refund when you cancel that. And yeah, like Bill said, I'm available for auto, home, renters, life, or health insurance quotes at any time. Just I'll leave my information in the chat. But yeah,
Please do.
thank you.
The
Yeah, no,
question, Jesse, you mentioned that a vacant property, it's more expensive to insure than certainly an owner occupied.
Yeah.
But I think if it's a tenant, tell me if this is true or not. Maybe it's just
Mhm.
I'm an anomaly. But I went on a duplex we have in Kansas City. We went from vacant to tenant occupied.
Yeah.
And the policy went up.
Interesting. Yeah, usually when it's vacant or unoccupied, it's about 1.5 to 2 times more expensive to insure. But
Well, then an
I'm not.
owner.
Yeah,
But tenants
Yeah.
carry their liabilities with them as well, I guess.
exactly. Yeah, I'm not sure. Usually,
Okay.
it should go
I'm not
the
sure if
other
that
way.
was just an odd situation or if it's always like that.
Also,
think, yeah,
insurance rates can go up as sometimes you just catch the TikTok at the wrong time
That
and
could be too.
they reprice the
True.
policy. Really important, people buy property, don't think about the insurance. Or I deal in probate, and people inherit a property, and it's sitting there uninsured, and they might say, "Well, I don't have any money, I have to worry about it." But if you have the house, you're going to sell it. You have liability now, and then you got to get insured, or else you run the risk of a claim. And then when you do inherit the property, the claim gets paid before you get your share. So, really important when you have vacant property. When you buy fix and flip, you might think you're going to be in construction and in less than 30 days. It never works out that way. It always takes longer than you plan, I think. Good. Hey, Jesse, thanks. Make sure you put your info in our chat box so people can reach you.
for sure.
Bill, this is
Thank you.
Anders. I have a question one for Jesse and one for Avram. Let's start with Jesse. Me and my wife have a property out of state and in South Carolina, and the insurance company we were working with there said there is construction ongoing, and they said we only need something called builder's risk, which is a lot less. So what is your thought on that?
So technically, you should let them know that that a property will be unoccupied and that you're doing construction on it. Builder's risk only covers like the damages that are caused during that can happen like during your construction. But regarding the unoccupied, you just have to let them know that unit will be unoccupied, because if there's a claim in that unit and you didn't disclose that, they will have the ability to not pay you. So.
All right, thank you. And Avram, so are you going to continue in Kansas City and investing, or you're done with Kansas?
Well, at this point, we're starting to reach that critical mass where we have enough invested there. So I think for the time being, we're going to probably stay.
And again, I don't think I'm out of school by sharing. You also like going to Kansas City.
Well, I like going.
Yeah. So, I mean, frankly, if I had a deal that broke even and it was in Boca Raton, Florida, I had to invest in Boca Raton, Florida.
That's so
I like
bad.
going, to be honest. And now it's a tax deduction, right? You have to be honest about it. So.
You and I have a common friend that owns a property in Hawaii that says it makes no money at all. But
I know. He's always offering us a deal on the property, and I've been to Hawaii a lot. I love Hawaii, but it's not really kind of the cards in this stage of my life. Great. Joel, here's an expert in real estate investing and construction costs. Joel, what's going on?
So thank you, Avraham, and thank you, Bill, for putting this event together. And it's really not a question, but I do want to point out two things that you share about. And I probably did over 300 properties is what you've done. So I know exactly what you're going through. But I think that the two things are the most important, that really important for us when we're investing in the real estate, and what you're doing, and it's flipping. It doesn't matter if you keep the property, if you refinance, but you're going into a property, and it's having a good crew working for you. This is key. It's so important. Yeah. I know you start a new crew and it costs you another $5,000. Sometimes finding what can occur a little bit more expensive in the upfront, but knowing that you're working with the right people, even if it's look like it's cost more money, it's not necessarily will cost more money, because you get the project quicker. You have one crew that's working for you, the in, the out. If you're doing the contract correctly, then you can actually run multiple projects out of town, because you have the system in place. And the same way that you build your system of how to buy the properties is to run the system with the contractors, and the cost of money. And I know that you invest most of the money on your own, but you point out how much it will cost you, the money for. So as you build the business bigger, really you are in the business of buying money. Cheaper you buy the money, more money you will make. So this is just 2 points that I like to dive in a little bit deeper to what Avraham already brought in.
Thanks so much. On the point of the contractor, there's an amazing book that transformed my business called Who Not How by master coach Dan Sullivan. He's really like the business coach master. And whenever you have a business problem, we tend to go to, well, how do I do this? Well, how do I fix that? How do I do that? If you can find the right person and they do it, who's in charge of this, and they manage it for you. For me, in my marketing, I've been definitely focusing on finding a person to handle the project rather than me design the project. And what Joel's saying, I think what Avraham alluded to as well, is the team you have is so critical that you want to spend some time finding the right people, not necessarily learning all the intricacies of the market that you're in. Thank you, Joel. Thanks for the insight. For this is a guy who's flipped 300 properties or more and such. Brawley, I know you had a property that you wanted to share with us real quick. I'm not sure. I have an email, but I don't have. Quick? Hold on just 1 second. Let me just finish this up. Sure. Brawley, do we have the property address? Are you giving it out, or do they need to talk to you about that? How do you handling this?
Oh, hi, Bill. Thank you so much for putting these minutes together. Yes, I do have the address. I can share it with somebody who's interested, but I am requesting proof of funds before I release address, rent roll, photos, and all the other details that I have. I'm actually outside of the property. I just finished giving the tenants a notice because I'm doing a one-time showing for people who submit offers. This Saturday is going to be, but I'll give you guys the rest of the details if you guys submit an offer. It's a 5-unit in South LA. It's a 5-unit. All of them are occupied. I do have a few offers in hand already, but I'm still waiting for more. And it's going to be sold off market. And I thought it would be a great place to share it with everyone, because I know we're all looking for deals that are, that make sense financially and not off market. So I think this might be a good idea for you guys. I put the details down below in the chat box. I included my email and my phone number.
There it is. Perfect.
Yeah, the asking price right now is $650,000 for a 5-plex. So you don't see many of those right now in LA. So I think this will be a good opportunity. So you guys can call me or email me with more questions.
Fantastic, Brian. Thank you so much. Appreciate you jumping in. Yeah. Who had their hand up? Dave, you had your hand up?
Yeah, and I apologize for interrupting. I would not ever want to do that. I don't know how to put my hand up without saying excuse me, so forgive me. But
I'm going to give you and Avraham personalized Zoom lessons, I think.
I'm trying. I do enough Zooms. I should know this by now. Anyhow, so first, this young man that I was just speaking about this property. You said here in the chat box that the income is from 4 units, but I think I thought I heard you say when you were speaking that it was from all 5 units.
It's a
you
5 unit
clarify?
property. The income.
I understand that, but
There's 4 of them. He's going for 4 of them.
I'm
Reach
so
out to him.
sorry. My phone was a little glitchy. What was the question?
well, in the chat, you say that the monthly rent that's coming in is from 4 units. It's a 5 unit property, but you also, I thought I heard you say when you were speaking that the rent was coming in from all 5 units. Would you just clarify?
Of course, that's a good question. So it's fully occupied. There's 5 tenants in place. One of them, and this is why I'm looking for an investor with experience with tenants, hasn't been paying rent.
Imagine that.
Gotcha. Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah, no kidding. Really. Surprise. Okay. Thank you.
Shocked.
Yeah,
Appreciate
for
you
sure.
clarifying.
Yeah, good question. Thanks.
Sure. And then, Bill, if you'll indulge me one more time, Mr. Glazer, when you were speaking about the insurance, I think it might be helpful for everyone. This question came to mind that I think I can probably answer myself, but I think it's best if you do. The building risk insurance that you mentioned, does it cover other losses other than what you're doing on the construction itself? For instance, some natural disaster, maybe fire wouldn't be appropriate, but personal liability, or does it the builder and flipper in this case, that wants to get that insurance from you? Do they also have to make sure they consider the cost of all that other insurance that you still need on a property? Again, fire insurance, and you don't need probably you don't need earthquake insurance, but fire and other
Tornado.
normal standard insurance.
Yeah. So yeah, it covers just exactly what you disclose. So if it's 1 unit you're working on, it only covers that 1 unit and like close proximity to that unit. Beyond that, it's your normal. If it's just like a unit of your building, it's just the normal policy beyond that. If it's like a whole house you're building or flipping, then as long as that construction process is going on, you're covered for all like fire, any kind of natural disaster as well, or
Thank you.
losses. Yeah.
All right. Thanks. I thought again it might be helpful to clarify for the whole group, including me. So thank you.
Thanks. Last question I see here is about the eviction moratorium. And there's a question that still has the issue, you can't evict tenants. So I would say some tenants can be, some can't be, but there's certainly currently no eviction trial, jury trials available. So the problem is, even though the law might say you can evict somebody, not only would a smart tenant require a jury trial, since one can't be formed yet, but there are literally in every eviction court building nonprofits who will capture the tenants and say, hey, by the way, we'll represent you for free. And one of the things we advise is require a jury trial. And since they haven't scheduled any for, let's say, 2 years, you can imagine the backlog of cases is going to be about 2 years. So there are people who are going to work this system, and there's organizations helping them, that if you get in that on the wrong side of that deal, it's going to be a long time before you see rent. From an eviction trial specifically. That doesn't mean there's other evictions for causes, and there's ways to bypass jury trials on those. But if it's just not fair to pay rent, you're not going to be able to get anybody out for it. In LA, city or county for a long time is my professional advice. There's a great talk on YouTube. Dennis Black is one of the leading attorneys in that, and he gave a talk at the Apartment Owner Association on their YouTube channel. Hey, it's time. We went almost a full hour here, which is kind of our limit. So first off, I just want to thank Avraham Gordon. Was this helpful, guys, going through a property like this in detail and looking at the numbers? Yeah, I
Actually, thank you for the opportunity to talk.
I enjoy it, number one, and I just enjoy hanging out with Avraham. So for us, the only thing is we didn't have any beer. Normally, he and I was.
That could have been better. We
have some country music in the background, but we did pretty well. We behaved ourselves, even with our wives not being here. So thank you so much, Avraham, for the time.
Well, thank
sharing
you.
with other people. Continued success for you and Betsy on your real estate business and practice and investments. And thank you for sharing.
I will say that learning, there's a skill to investing out of state that's separate from the ins and outs of getting any particular deal that you'll learn. And it opens up a whole new market that and vistas that you wouldn't have otherwise.
Well, thanks for sharing that with us. I'm Bill Gross. I'm at Bill Gross EXP on social media. I'm on YouTube at Bill Gross EXP, Facebook, LinkedIn. Feel free to reach out to me. Call, text, or email me if I can help in any way. And as always, make this week your best week ever. Thanks so much, everybody. Really appreciate being on the call today.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Hey, Bill, when's the next Thursday night mixer?
If you're talking about the EXP, the thing we used to have there at So they're not allowing us to have it. They tried to put together an alternate location. The city of LA has made it very difficult. You may have found out today the state eliminated mask mandates, but the city and county are requiring proof of vaccine. And so there's a number of people in that group who don't want to have an event that requires that. So I don't know. I don't know if we're gonna have it again soon. I know our group is hosting our own event in Diamond Bar on April 8th for real estate agents in the morning. If you're interested, we could talk about that. But as far as the EXP kind of beer get together, unfortunately, that's been a victim of COVID here that we'll try to get restarted here as soon as we can.
All right. Yeah. Talk to me about the Diamond Bar. If I'm allowed, I'll show up.
Cool. Very good. Okay, guys. Hey, thanks everybody. Thanks, Joel. Nice seeing you. Brother, thank you. Dave Wyman, as always.
Thank you,
Melissa,
Bill. My
thank you so
pleasure.
much.